It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, a beautiful bride standing under a sky of white roses, surrounded by laughter and blessings. But in the middle of this perfect wedding, something shocking happened that no one could ever forget. As the guests clinked glasses and the soft music played, a simple woman in a plain dress walked up to the bride. No one paid much attention at first. Who was she anyway? Just another guest, maybe a distant relative. But within seconds, the whole hall fell silent when the bride suddenly turned and slapped the woman across the face. The sharp sound echoed louder than the music. People gasped. Some dropped their champagne glasses. The groom looked frozen, his eyes darting between his new wife and the woman now holding her cheek in disbelief. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Why would a bride on her special day humiliate someone like that in front of hundreds of eyes? The simple woman didn't shout, didn't slap back. She just looked at the bride with eyes so calm it made people shiver. Everyone wanted answers. The guests leaned in, whispering secrets. Was this woman an uninvited guest? An old lover? A threat? But then the woman opened her mouth and said just a few words. Words so shocking they made the bride stumble back in her white gown. The truth that slipped from her lips was something so unexpected that it turned the dream wedding into a nightmare no one could stop watching, before anyone could react. The bride's face turned pale, and the groom dropped her hand. The guests stepped closer, hungry for the truth that was about to shatter the love story they thought they knew. And right there, with roses falling and hearts racing, the simple woman's secret began to unravel, changing everything forever. Nobody knew. Who would dare to ruin such a grand wedding? Some guests pulled out their phones, pretending to check messages, but secretly recording every second. The bride's mother rushed over, whispering harshly in her daughter's ear, trying to keep her calm. But the bride's eyes stayed locked on the simple woman who had just turned her perfect day upside down. The woman, whose name few even knew, stood with her hands folded in front of her. She looked so ordinary that people wondered how she could hold so much power in just a few words. Her dress was old, her shoes were dusty, but her voice was strong enough to silence an entire hall. Whispers flew through the air like bees. Some said she was the groom's old flame. Others thought she was a stranger wanting attention. But a few guests, the older ones sitting near the back, started to remember a face from long ago. A neighbor leaned in to another and muttered, "Isn't that the woman who used to work for the bride's family?" Bits of truth mixed with rumors. The groom's hands were shaking as he grabbed the bride's arm, asking her something nobody else could hear. She pulled away, eyes wild with fear and anger. It was clear she didn't expect this secret guest to show up, especially not today. Meanwhile, the woman stepped closer to the wedding cake, her eyes drifting over the expensive flowers and golden decorations. She didn't look impressed. Instead, she seemed sad, almost like she was remembering something painful buried deep in the past. Everyone waited for her to speak again, hoping she would explain. But instead, she just stood there, staring at the couple as if daring them to admit something terrible. And in that moment, it felt like the entire wedding was balancing on a single breath, ready to break apart with one more word, behind the single. Behind the shocked faces and soft murmurs, a few people in the crowd were not just guests, they were family. Old friends and workers who had known secrets hidden behind the rich family's perfect image. An older man near the buffet line, who once worked as the family's driver, clenched his jaw as he recognized the woman. He remembered how she used to come to the big house every morning, carrying a small lunchbox, always quiet, never looking anyone in the eye. Back then, she was just the maid. Nobody paid her much attention, except the bride's father, who was nowhere to be seen today, near the flower arch. The groom's sister whispered to her friend that she had heard stories about a child once, a child who disappeared before anyone could ask questions. The simple woman's eyes drifted across the guests as if she could hear every rumor at once. She seemed to be searching for someone else in the crowd, someone who was avoiding her gaze. The bride's mother kept glancing at the exit, her hands shaking while she tried to call someone on her phone. But the signal inside the hall was weak, and her voice turned into broken curses as she struggled to hide her fear. The groom's best man stepped forward, trying to calm everyone down, telling them it was just a misunderstanding, but nobody believed him. His voice cracked, giving him away. Through all this, the simple woman still hadn't raised her voice. She stood so still, as if she knew the whole wedding was already cracking open on its own. Her calmness made people uneasy what truth could. She'll possibly hold that would make a bride lose her smile, a groom drop his vows, and a family tremble in front of their guests. Some guests tried to pull the bride away, urging her to hide inside before things got worse. But she stayed rooted in place, her white dress brushing against the marble floor, her makeup starting to smudge under the hot lights. The air was heavy with questions, but nobody was brave enough to ask what everyone was thinking. What did the simple woman know that could destroy so many lives in just one day? The hall felt smaller with every heartbeat. The soft wedding music had long stopped, replaced by whispers that turned sharper with each passing second. Some guests pulled their chairs closer, pretending they weren't desperate to catch every word. The simple woman finally stepped away from the cake and turned to face the crowd, her eyes meeting people one by one, like she was searching for the last piece of her truth. The bride's hands were clenched so tightly around her bouquet that the flowers began to break apart, petals falling to the floor like pieces of the life she had tried so hard to protect. The groom looked like he wanted to run, but every step he took back made him bump into someone ready to block his escape. He glanced at his parents, but they just stood frozen, knowing there was no way to silence what was about to come out. Near the back, a young journalist who came only to cover the perfect love story now had her phone camera out, recording from behind a glass of untouched wine. She knew this story would spread like wildfire. Wedding scandal, hidden secrets, simple woman's revenge. It was the kind of truth that people devoured when they pretended their own lives were perfect. The bride's mother finally pushed through the crowd, grabbed the simple woman's arm, hissing at her to leave, begging her not to say more. But the woman only looked down at the hand clutching her, then back at the bride, her expression calm but her eyes burning with a quiet storm. She took a deep breath, the entire room leaning in as if pulled by invisible strings. The simple woman's voice was soft but clear as she started to speak again. She spoke of nights in the big house when everyone slept, of promises made behind closed doors, of people who thought money could bury shame forever. Gasps broke through the silence like cracks in glass. The bride's makeup was now ruined with tears she tried to hide, her shoulders trembling under the heavy lace of her dress. The groom's lips moved, but no words came out. He knew he couldn't stop this anymore. And just when everyone thought they would finally hear the whole truth, the woman paused, her eyes drifting to the back of the hall where a door slowly creaked open. Someone stood there in the shadows, someone everyone thought would never come back. And in that single moment, the secret everyone feared was about to step into the light, ready to tear apart what was left of the perfect wedding. As the door creaked wider, the hush in the hall turned so heavy that even the clinking of glasses stopped. Every head turned to see who had arrived so late, who dared to walk in while secrets were hanging by a thread. The simple woman's eyes locked on the figure in the doorway, and for the first time since she spoke, her calm mask slipped just a little. A flicker of fear crossed her face, then something like relief. A man stepped forward, older, dressed in a dark suit that didn't quite hide his tired shoulders. Some of the older guests knew him right away. It was the bride's father, the Same man people whispered about when they talked about shady deals and hidden family scandals. Nobody had seen him all day. Rumor was he'd been called away for business. But now it was clear that he'd stayed away for something else, something he couldn't face until this moment forced him out of hiding. The bride's eyes widened. When she saw him, she took a step back, bumping into the wedding arch, knocking loose a string of white roses that fell like snow at her feet. Her mother froze mid-step, her phone dropping to the floor with a dull thud. The father's eyes met the simple woman's, and it was as if the whole room could feel the unfinished story tightening around them. But before anyone could speak, a sharp voice rose from the back, someone young, a man in casual clothes who nobody recognized. He stepped forward, holding up an envelope that looked worn and crumpled at the edges. He shouted over the whispers, saying he had proof. Real proof of what happened all those years ago. Documents that could destroy the powerful family's name and expose why the simple woman had come here today. The guests gasped again. Heads whipping between the simple woman, the father standing like stone, and the stranger who claimed to hold the final piece. The bride's knees buckled as she clutched her father's arm. Beg,